Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to be going over one of the cooler games in the Gala game sphere. This is a 4X grand strategy game that is slated to be coming out pretty soon. So to say the least, this is a pretty cool time in the space. I'd say there's a lot of cool games coming out. One of those games being Echoes of Empire. So I'm here joined by the general manager of Echoes of Empire, Matt. How you doing, Matt? We're going to be talking about a lot of cool stuff today.
Great. Happy to be here with you.
Awesome. Okay. So there's a lot of people here that are now looking into this ecosystem. They're looking into like brand new games that they want to be super excited about. If you could just do like maybe a minute pitch of what Echoes of Empire is, just so we can get people started here, that'd be awesome.
Yeah. So Echoes of Empire, space-themed 4X grand strategy game, as you mentioned, on Gala's platform. And it's basically just going to be a situation of all-out war. You're coming in as a neutral house amidst several factions in the game, and you're going to be working with each of those factions to determine your alliances, build ships and fleets, go out and can claim territory to gather as much resources as you can. And the unique side of the space that we're in is really turn that into real life earnings for yourself as well. So that's kind of the beauty of where we're at in the space is the the strategy that you basically will implement with the people that you work with and the players that you play with will turn into real life earnings for yourself.
Would you say this game is maybe equivalent to just a regular game with NFTs onboarded to it? Or is it a little bit more of a deeper like Web3 experience where every little resource is going to be worth something? A game that reminds me big of that is, I believe there's this game called like Lord of Kingdoms or something like that that's out there right now, where if you mine gold out there with your troops, you can go ahead and sell that in the marketplace and get something out of it. Is it similar to that? Or is it going to be like you have these land plots which you buy and then maybe you can flip them later because they're in like advantageous spots? How's that going to work out?
Yeah, so I would say, our strategy is really what you're describing long term of where we want to go. The longer we have this game out in the market, the more additions we're going to add to it, the more features we're going to add, and the more of that we want to be more closely integrated with our Web3 approach. So over time, we really hope to have this sort of live versioning marketplace
Yeah.
in the game that has a lot of these different aspects all tied into the blockchain. Initially, our strategy is making sure that we start with things and adding things to the blockchain that make sense first. So the areas where we've started are in what you described as land. We call them celestial objects or celestial
Yeah.
claims. And basically, we did a pre-sale, I think back in 2021, where a bunch of folks purchased celestial claims from us. They'll basically own their own planets or stars all across the map, and those planets and stars are essentially like resource hubs. So
Okay.
other players will come to those celestial objects and mine them for resources. And then the owners of those celestial claims basically have to protect the people who mine the resources for them. So that's kind of like part one of where it all starts. Over time, more and more of those components will become better integrated with blockchain.
That's really interesting. Okay, I didn't know that part. So the person that owns those celestial bodies, the planets, etc., they actually have to be pretty active in the game. Maybe they have a guild that just protects that specific planet so that, these mercenaries can come over here and just mine all the resources there. And then, of course, they get a cut out of it. Is that the idea for it? Or does it go a little bit deeper than that?
Yeah, that's you've got the gist of it. So
That's really
basically,
cool.
let's say I'm a celestial object owner, and as you mentioned, I would get a cut of the proceeds that come out of my celestial object. But there's too much to do for just myself. I wouldn't be able to do all of the mining and harvesting on my own. I would need to build alliances. I would need guild mates. I would need friends to come and mine and harvest resources from my celestial object. But there's obviously danger in that, right? Because now you're out in the world. Mining takes some amount of time associated with it. So now these fleets are just sitting there mining and harvesting, probably not outfitted super well for combat. So now other pirates might want to come,
Yeah.
pirate organizations or guilds might want to come attack us. And it's my job as the owner to try and protect them or work with other people to try and protect them.
And just harbor the loot there. That's so interesting. Yeah. So that's good though. Like you have to be very active. I know that there's a couple games where you need to own like specific NFTs or other things or assets to be able to actually form guilds in, a 4X grand strategy game. Is that going to be similar here where you need to own a planet, or can people just like start it up with the in-game currency that you guys have?
Yeah, so I would say our guild's development is still super early, so we haven't aligned exactly on how we're going to approach that. We like you said, we've seen some different situations where some folks create like a guild charter NFT,
Yeah.
where you get a guild charter NFT, and that's what allows you to start a guild. That's something that we've looked at, but we're not sure on what our direction on that is going to be. But the most important thing is that like anyone can come and play. There's no need to like own an NFT to like become part of a guild, or to like join up with your friends and play in the world.
Yeah, so for now it's kind of just like open-ended TBD. We don't know exactly what's going on. That's fair. And I remember I was looking at the release date. It said something around like what, October, not sure exactly the date. Maybe you can give it to the people, the masses here.
Yeah, so we're doing our first commercial launch on October 4th, I believe is the date. So it's coming up pretty quickly. Let me just
Yeah, we're like
verify
right
that date
there.
for you. Yeah, our target date's October 4th. So we're super excited about that. The whole team's pushing really hard towards that date, and making sure that we, get the game into a good spot for our players. And so yeah, we're super excited to get the game out fully at that point.
Okay, and for the people trying to try out this game like right now, I remember there was a playtest. I believe it was exclusive to those people that had those celestial bodies, the landowners. Is there going to be maybe an open beta for everybody to try it out? And would it be kind of like the Walking Dead Empires where people just played and they had fun? Or would it be a little bit more like Miranda's where they had to slay an objective and they got some kind of reward for it?
Yeah, so every time we do a playtest, we do try to get a little bit of community involvement associated with
Yeah.
it. We did a couple of like community contests in our last playtest as well. And we love the idea of creating like big group goals when we do those sorts of playtests. So, for example, that resource that I was mentioning that everyone will kind of be will be very sought after in the game is Stardust. So we set like a community goal. Like if we reach this community goal of Stardust, then like everybody who played gets a reward. So we would probably do that sort of thing again when we do a playtest in the future. The we're still building out our playtest strategy between now and October to see kind of where we fall on a bunch of those. The next one will probably still just be another Celestial Claim holder playtest, but we're certainly hopeful that we can do a broader playtest with more folks. Um, without needing to really own any sort of Celestial Claim.
Okay, that makes sense. So the coveted resource in this game is called Stardust. Maybe you can elaborate more on how people acquire this Stardust and what this is going to do in the game.
Yeah, so Stardust is essentially the most valuable resource in the universe. And it basically comes out of harvesting actions or mining actions at any sort of celestial body, right? Specifically, the celestial bodies that are owned by other players.
Okay.
And so that's basically how the resource is generated. But then the resource can also be exchanged between players, particularly through combat, right? So I am a mining player. I go and mine a bunch of Stardust. I'm super excited that I've got all this Stardust. And then you decide that you're a combat player. You want to come find Stardust. You don't want to mine for it because it takes too long to do that. So you just look for people who have some, like me. You come attack me. You destroy my fleet. You get the Stardust that my fleet was holding. Uh, and so that's kind of how the resources kind of exchanged across the game universe. And then basically what will happen is at the end of every day, we'll do an exchange of Stardust out of the world for reward token. So
Oh,
that's essentially how you earn the reward token.
so there's going to be a reward token here.
Yeah, so the reward token that we'll be using is Gala coin. We'll be using
Oh,
Gala
it's gonna
coin
be
as our
Gala.
reward token.
Okay. Yeah, I
Yeah,
feel like a lot of the games in Gala are using Gala, which is good. I think a lot of people are really excited about that. So if you're wondering, it's Gala. Are you gonna? It's a Stardust function. It's not gonna be like victory points or anything that other people are doing. It's just straight
that's
up.
correct. Yeah.
You own this Stardust and it gets turned into something real. So you can't actually. Can you actually use Stardust as a currency to buy other things, or is it just like automatically converted every day?
It's automatically converted every day.
Okay,
Yeah,
so it's just like
automatically
straight up
converted.
like rewards. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So, okay, A big worry that I've had on for strategy games. We'll get into the combat in a little bit. I'm really interested in that. It's a space game, looks cool. But the biggest issue I've ever had is in terms of like selling land plots. When Lords Mobile came out, when I started playing Lords Mobile for the first time, biggest grand strategy game out there. People play it a ton. The way that they kept people spending and the way they kept people engaged was every couple days they would just release a new server, and this would have, brand new land and all these different things. I've always like wondered how like blockchain games are supposed to like tackle this issue when, I mean, people are buying these land plots early on in pre-sales, right? So is the plan to just have one single server and maybe it continues to expand because it's space? Or is it just going to be like, there's new servers, but you could use this ancient land or whatever celestial body you have on that server that's new?
Yeah, that's a great question. Right now, our strategy is one giant server. So all the players are just going to be on
Interesting.
one huge
Is it going to be
server, all
like
playing.
how big?
It's yeah. I think right now our entire map is around 1 million map squares. So it's really just like the map we're starting with.
Okay.
And then from there, we really anticipate that it will likely grow larger than that, right? We'll start with 1 million, and then over time, as more players join the game, as more people get into Echoes of Empire, we plan to expand the map with new territories to account for the growth in the player base. So yeah, that's where we're starting. We're starting million map squares. We're starting with everyone on one server. That's kind of like the champion case of how we want to move forward in the game. And we'll see what happens from there. That could change.
Yeah.
There may come a time where we're like, it might make sense for us to do a second server. But as of today, we're focused on one server only.
That makes sense. Space game. You guys killed it with the idea because you could just keep expanding it forever. So is there like maybe like a wonder zone where people have to fight every week for maybe this specific celestial body that gives buffs, and maybe there's like a warlord of everything in the Echoes of Empire world? Is it similar to that in the grand strategy genre, or are you guys doing something different?
Yeah, I think our eventual goal is to have like a PvP only zone, which is called the core. So we've
Yeah.
kind of got this in the back of our minds of like where we want to go and our eventual roadmap of getting us there. But yeah, we call it the core. It's basically going to be its own zone where no one can own any of the celestial objects
Okay.
in that zone. So it's all territory control essentially. And you would basically conquest each celestial object for your guild, and the resources that are produced by those celestial objects in that zone are specific to kind of like late game progression, right? After a certain level of like command center progression, you'll essentially need these types of resources, and that'll kind of push you to go into this PvP zone.
So pretty much the more coveted resources are more likely to be found on the core, is what you're trying to go
Correct.
for.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah, I've noticed a lot of games do that. It's a good feedback loop. Like people just keep throwing stuff at it. So are there going to be any like ship NFTs that people grab and then they use, kind of like what is it, Eve Online, where they just buy
Mhm.
these really expensive ships and just slam it at each other over and over? Or is it going to
Yeah.
be like Lords Mobile, right? That you just like train your troops up over time and then eventually you send them out. Maybe you could spend some gems to speed them up, but overall it's just that.
I would say it's actually a little bit of both of those things.
Okay.
So um, we look at Eve as like really the dominant player in the
Right.
space MMO space, and so we kind of look to them as like big brother to some degree. They do some really cool stuff that we wanna draw inspiration from. But same for Lords Mobile. Some of the way that they think about troop interactions and the way that you build up your troops over time. So there's like similarities in each of those systems that we are trying to emulate. So on the Eve side of things, we essentially think of that as like our capital ships and our flagships. These are basically like the big, motherships that you
Right.
fly around that are like the leaders of your fleet, right? They're the best ship in your fleet. They're the biggest one. They're the one that does the most damage. In some other, more fantasy 4X games, they usually call those like heroes or champions, right? A champion like leads a legion. So essentially the same thing. We would be doing that as well, and those would be NFTs as well. The flagships of those would be NFTs. The way that we're thinking about that is very similar, actually, to the way that Eve thinks about it. They think of the item that you buy as the blueprint that actually manufactures the ship. So we're doing kind of the same thing.
Oh, interesting.
So the NFT that you will get or that you could purchase for a flagship is the blueprint. It's the tool that lets you manufacture that ship. Because ships in our game are fully destructible. You could go into battle. I could go into battle against you, and I could lose. And if I lose, my fleet is completely destroyed. And really, the best way for us to maintain that destructibility is that you have to keep manufacturing ships, even the most powerful ones like flagships and capital ships. So that's why the NFT is the capability to manufacture, right? You buy this blueprint for an epic commander. That means that you can manufacture epic commanders using that blueprint, but the ship itself is destructible.
Oh my god. Okay, that's really interesting. That's kind of like getting access to like tier 5, tier 6 troops. So free to play players, are they going to have any sort of way to be able to kind of tap into that kind of gameplay? Maybe they're 300 days in and they finally get the blueprint for that, or is it just going to be like only gated to people that buy NFTs?
Yeah, so I think our eventual goal is that everyone will be able to buy the flagship variants. So flagships are kind of like the
Yeah.
stronger variant of the two ships, capital ships being kind of like the baby brother versions of those ships. And capital ship blueprints will be readily available in the game world. Just about anybody could like earn capital ship blueprints through regular gameplay, let's say through quests. Just you could purchase them from vendors, but they have limited uses. So like if I buy, let's say I buy a geologist blueprint of a capital ship, it might only have 5 uses on it before that blueprint is no longer usable, and then I have to get another one versus the flagships, those actually have unlimited uses. So I could keep using that same Commander Epic flagship blueprint as long as I wanted to use it. And so that's why we kind of want people to graduate into the flagship blueprints. And the beauty of Web3 is really that's something that is possible for free to play players, right? You could come in and not have spent any dollars, and you could have earned enough over time through the earning mechanisms of Web3 that allow you to eventually go and get that flagship blueprint, right? And you could have maybe never put any of your own money into the game. So that's kind of the beauty of the space, right? It's like you could be a true free to play player, just an earner, and really get to that level where you could go and purchase an item of value.
Yeah, I remember. It's kind of like I played a ton of Lords Mobile, and a great example of that is when I got my tier 4 troops, and I was like, what, 400 million might or something like that, doing rallies and stuff like that. And a ton of people would come up to me and they'd be like, oh, I'll pay you US dollars on this random black market website for all of your gold, because gold was the most coveted resource. It's like the Stardust, right, of the Lords
Right.
Mobile world. And so whenever I think about that, that's why I'm so excited about Web3, because it takes off the black market element. It just makes everything legit. Like, it's just totally legal. It's totally reasonable to expect. And I feel like that's how it should always be. You guys take maybe a small cut of all profits just to fund your game off marketplace fees, and then just let the players do whatever they want. And it's just this really healthy loop that I think is going to be really big. I like the idea of the NFTs being more of a convenience factor than anything, because you still need to gather the resources to craft whatever it is you're going to craft. It's just, if you're a free to play player, you just have to get whatever blueprint you get on those flagship NFTs, which they're not an NFT at that point. I would guess they're just like uses in the game. And then you'd have
Right.
maybe
Yeah.
like 5 uses until you have to go grind it back and grab it. But it's cool because I'm guessing there's going to be a point in the game where even the free to play players, there's going to be 30 of them. They'll just keep cycling between themselves to grab all these flagships. Great. I'm glad we got that there. That's always like the biggest worry for me in these games. It's just like, if it's too pay to win, it doesn't work out. If you've got that healthy medium, incredible. So, with that being said, combat. Is the combat like Rise of Kingdoms? Is the combat like Eve? Is the combat like Lords? What's the combat looking like?
Yeah, so I think the way that we think about combat is pretty similar to Rise of Kingdoms. I would say it's pretty similar to both Rise of Kingdoms and Game of Thrones Conquest.
Yeah.
If you played Game of Thrones Conquest as well. So we actually, through playtesting with our community, have spent a lot of time iterating on combat. We wanted to make it feel better than it felt when we initially did it, and a lot of the ways that the game was functioning just felt a little bit clunky to play. And so really, really wanted to focus on simplifying that user experience and making it feel as intuitive and easy to use as possible. And that's actually like the changes we're working on right now, coming out of our last playtest. So previously, you had to take your fleet. You would have your capital ship or flagship at the lead spot of your fleet, and then you would have support ships as kind of supporting
Right.
functionality in that fleet. And previously, you would have to take that fleet, select it, send it to a place, and then it would take time to go to that place. And then once it got to that place, then you could decide to do an action. You could say, okay, now I want to mine or harvest at this place, or I want to attack another player at this place. And then after that action is complete, you'd have to manually send it back to your
Yeah, it's
home
really
base to
complicated.
deliver the resources.
Yeah.
Really complicated, just like kind of a mess. So we're like, let's just make this much more simple. And Rise of Kingdoms and Game of Thrones Conquest were great inspiration for us. We played those games, felt much more intuitive, and we're like, okay, we can make this better by just making that all one action. You just take your fleet, you decide which one you want to do an action with. You're like, I'm going to go attack Classy Crypto. I'm going to send it out. It takes its time to get there. It attacks you. It wins. It comes back on its own and delivers the resources. So we're essentially taking a very similar approach to the way that combat works in those systems.
Yeah, yeah. You need clarity. And most people aren't going to be that sweaty, right? Most people are just going to
Yeah.
want to click a button, get back. Maybe they'll use a speed boost or something like that, and they'll be done with it. So, with the simplicity, PC gamers are super hardcore. Mobile gamers love simplicity, and this game feels like it could be on mobile. Is there any planned release for mobile ever? Is it just going to be a PC game? Because I see on the website it says Mac and PC for platforms. Maybe you could elaborate a little bit more on that.
Yeah. I'm talking a lot about simplicity right now because that's where we're at. That's the point in time of our journey on where we're
Yeah.
taking this game. Is simple. Our strategy is simple first and build strategic complexity as we go. So the goal is really that we'll build on top of all of these systems into a world in which eventually it is going to be most likely too complex for this to exist purely on mobile. Something that we've talked with the community about though is one aspect of these types of games that becomes really important and valuable and is actually very specific to mobile is the notification system, right? The ability to notify
Yeah.
you when stuff is happening while you're away. And, we wouldn't want people just glued to their computers 24/7, just waiting for the next thing to happen. So there does need to be some sort of mechanism for us to notify players, like, hey, you should come back. Your home base is being attacked. You might want to pop online. And so that's kind of where our focus is for hopefully an eventual mobile companion app where we would serve you some of those notifications to your mobile phone so that you're aware of what's going on while
If
you're
they're
away.
being attacked, though, they have to run back home to the PC.
Exactly.
They
Yeah.
can't just
Gotta,
go to like the Foundry on mobile, like, and put their troops on some kind of shelter and run away.
maybe we'll get there. Maybe we'll eventually get
Okay.
to a place where we're able to do that. You can like buy a peace shield from your mobile app, and then it'll just pop on for you.
Yeah, I mean, when I think about space combat, I'm always thinking about. I think Rise of Kingdoms did it really well, where you have a couple guilds, you send your troops out, but it doesn't necessarily just do one action. That's more of a Lords kind of thing, where you just send it over, it attacks, and then it comes back after the random dice rolls happen. It's more of like
Yeah.
you send your troops out, they kind of stand still, you have multiple armies, and then you're just like kind of macro managing it all. In terms
Right.
of complexities, that makes so much sense for this game, and I hope that's where you're going.
I, we hope we can get there too. I think Rise of Kingdoms is definitely doing it the best in terms of kind of the way that macro adjustment and micro adjustment in combat looks. So we hope to be able to get to a place where we're able to do that for sure. Um, and yeah, like I said, it's really starting simple and then over time building on these foundational layers to build more interesting strategic depth and complexity.
Yeah, so would you say like the release isn't really like a full-on release where we've put on most of the features out, and more so like a release of we've got most of the bare bone features here for the experience, but we're gonna add on so much more in the future?
Yeah, that's exactly right. We think of game development as a process. We think of it as the ability to get us to live operations and then really developing a product over time in live operations that we almost feel like that is more advantageous for our players to be able to get something from us as early as we can get it to them so that they can enjoy with us, but then really having them be along for the ride as we kind of build on that experience over time.
Yeah, I think a good example of that would be some of the ones that are existing already on the Gala platform, like Townstar or Spider Tanks, where on their release, they kind of sucked. I'm going to be 100% honest. But over time, they really developed their economies. They changed everything out. They added new graphical updates, all kinds of stuff to make the gameplay experience a lot better. So I would imagine it's something similar to that. I know Echoes of Empire has been building since I have no idea. I mean, I know you guys got announced
It's
in
been a while,
2021
yeah.
for us, so I literally
Yeah.
have no idea. But I do know that you guys have a lot of passion for blockchain gaming. Clearly, you're talking about it a lot here. Maybe you can tell to the audience, a lot of the people here from the Gala community, why you decided to build on Gala specifically and why you're putting your eggs in the basket of Web3 gaming.
Yeah, I would say, the big thing is that Gala, we have like a prior existing relationship with some of the folks who work at Gala, and they were early supporters of our company. They kind of saw the direction that we wanted to go. They saw that we were really passionate about making not just great blockchain games, but just great games in general. And we knew that their folks came from a similar background. We knew that they had passion in really bringing great games to a new and burgeoning space. And that very much aligned with the way that we think about games. It's not just about making a Web3 game to make a Web3 game. It's like we want to make great games first, and once we've built a great game, integrating that with the capabilities that Web3 gives us is really where our kind of unique advantage lies. And so that I think really helped us build an early partnership towards building Echoes of Empire in particular. And I think that has continued onward through our partnership. They continue to be great supporters of us. They're always working, they're always in the trenches working with us on how we approach things. They're always bringing new information to us as they find it. Obviously, they've got other games on their platform where they're learning stuff constantly, and they're always super open and honest with us about how that's going, what's working, what's not working, how can we improve, what would be better for Echoes, not better for Echoes. And so, all in all, I think they've just been excellent partners for us.
And how would you say that working relationship is? Is it more so they focus on a specific part of everything, maybe the marketing, maybe whatever it is they focus on, and you guys just focus on building out the game? Would you say they push for a lot of playtest, social media management? Where's Gala's role in all of this?
Yeah, so Gala is very much a traditional publisher, right? So they handle a lot of the things that you just described. They handle a lot of our marketing. They do a lot of our community work for us. They, care a lot about social media management, all of those sorts of things. But they're also very involved in development as well. They want to see the game. They want to see how it's progressing. They want to know what's going to be
They
in it.
care, yeah.
They care. They love. They're gamers at heart too. So they every time we have a playtest, we're usually doing an internal playtest first, and they're like, "Oh, super excited! Like, let us see the build. We'd love to show it to a bunch of people at Gala. Like, give you guys feedback." So they're very involved throughout everything, but they're also quite trusting of us as developers. They give us a lot of space to kind of drive the game forward in a way that we think makes sense. And so, yeah, I would say have been a great publisher for us.
That's good to hear. And I mean, you kind of alluded to building games in the past. Are any of these major titles, or are they more just smaller projects?
Yeah, so I used to work in mobile gaming. I used to work at Congregate, working particularly in the idle game genre.
Ooh,
Um,
big genre.
yeah, so I used to work, yeah, like games like Idle Frontier. I worked on a couple of other ones before that, like Pocket Politics. I did a little bit of advisory work for some of the adventure games as well, like Adventure Capitalist, Adventure
Oh,
Communist.
I
Those
played
were
all of them.
great
Yeah.
games. Yeah, loved chatting with those developers about that a lot. And then after that, I worked on Valorant at Riot for some time as well.
And how would you say the transition to Web3 has been? Have there been a lot of complications? Has it been smooth? How's the process here? Is it chill? Like, what's going on here?
It's very hard. It's
Very
very
hard.
hard.
Okay.
There's no way to sugarcoat it. I think the the technology is super complex. It's super complex, but I like think of myself as a bit of a technologist. I love learning about new technology and learning a new space and seeing how it can provide us with tools that will improve the games we make. And so I think it's been very enjoyable to learn about the space, see what we can do, see how it can improve our products. And I felt very similarly to what you mentioned about kind of like black market experience on
Yeah.
Lords Mobile, where it's like, oh, it feels like this doesn't need to exist. Like it feels like there is a better way. I think the story that I hold on to a lot is I used to be a big World of Warcraft player, and it was the same thing, right? People are like selling characters, they're selling gold for real money, and I'm like, oh man, wouldn't it just be better if like the developers could find a way to take their profits out of this, but also like the players could go and profit off of that too. This is obviously a commodity that's valuable to people. Um, there must be a better way for us to allow the exchange of those things for real money, and I think that that is really kind of the intriguing part about the Web3 space.
Yeah, I think a lot of people will just dumb it down to greed for regular publishers, where it's like, why would I allow people to trade Riot points between each other when I could just force them to buy more Riot points? Would
Yeah.
you feel like it's like that? Are you worried in a scenario where there's going to be a lot of these games coming out with Web3 technologies where they allow players to play and they could have just made so much more capital by just forcing people to buy it themselves? Is that ever a worry for you?
I think it is certainly a concern that we're always aware of. I think the biggest piece of being in this space is it's hard to say that anyone has really actually figured it out
No.
completely. I don't think any developer out there has really been like blockbuster success, and everyone agrees like, oh, they figured it out. We should all do it like this, right? So I think that that's the challenge of a new burgeoning space like this is we're all kind of looking around at each other like, is this going to work? Like, did you figure it out? Did we figure it out? Like, we'll see if somebody figures it out. And so that's kind of like the mental space that I try to be in a lot of the time is like very much roll with the punches. It's like, okay, if we find an angle that we think makes sense, is going to build us the profitability that we need as a company and also sufficiently reward our players and owners. That's great. Like, let's like try to go and pursue that, right? Let's try to get everybody moving in the same direction. I just did an AMA with our community yesterday talking about kind of the changeover to Gala coin as our reward token. And we actually feel like that's a good thing for the space because it kind of gets everybody moving in the same direction, right? It's like Gala, our publisher, us, the developer, our players and owners, everybody's interested in the same thing, right? It's like we all want Gala to succeed. We all want Gala
Aligned
coin
incentives, yeah.
to succeed as the token for the game. And so it aligns everybody's incentives exactly. So that's really the goal. It's trying to get everybody moving in the same direction.
Yeah, and I've noticed a lot of these different games. Well, first off, I mean, that's a great piece of news. Pretty much everybody in the Gala ecosystem has been like begging for all of these games to just stop releasing tokens and just do the same thing, simplify it like you've said, and just make it easier for the consumer. Because right now, you get onto Gala, you're trying to buy anything, and it's just such a pain for most people. Obviously, for me, I've been in the space for 2 years, it's nothing for me. But like most people, it's really complicated to get a seed phrase and put this down and get a transfer code and get an authie and then have to import the ETH gas fees and too much, right? It's really interesting because you guys built back in 2021 plus with Gala. You had pretty much no idea when Gyri or whatever it's going to be called would actually come out. And that's the big
Totally.
thing in the space that people are looking forward to. It's no gas fees. We don't want to worry about gas fees. So people can just build their games and just have a place to not worry. So, with all this being said, I think the last question that I want to ask here before I let you go, thank you so much for being here. I know we're, 33 minutes in. That
Yeah, of course.
question is, where will we be able to find this game when it goes live? Is it going to be on Epic Games? Is it going to be on Steam? Is it going to be just on Gala? Where do you think you can go ahead and put this puppy?
Day one, definitely Gala, of course, will absolutely be on Gala's platform. Um, but to be frank, we don't know where else it's going to be
Ooh,
yet.
okay.
We're working with Gala. We're working with Gala right now to figure that out. We're in the midst of our go-to-market planning, and that's a really big piece of it. Platforms are a really big piece of it. So, we're obviously hopeful that we can be on other platforms. We've got our eyes keenly attached on Grit and Superior, and seeing how they've kind of approached being on different platforms. And we're nudging Gala a lot on that to say like, okay, how can we do that?
How
Like,
can
what
we
is
get
it
on
going to
Epic
take for
Games?
us to go
Yeah.
and do that too? So that's definitely what we're thinking.
Yeah, I mean, I played Grit literally yesterday. It's so fun. So I'd imagine if they had enough trust to put you on Gala too, that you guys are going to be just as awesome come October. I mean, I'm looking forward to the game. When's the playtest coming for the next time so people can go ahead and hop in? Where can people find you? And that's pretty much just going to be it.
Yeah, so we're hoping to do another playtest next month. That's our goal, to do another playtest in June. Um, Best way to keep up to date with kind of where we are and what's going on with the development is to join our Discord. We've got our own Echoes of Empire Discord. If you're in the Gala Discord, you could also join us in our discussion channels in the Gala Discord. We're usually pretty actively chatting in there. I'm pretty active in there as well. I'm Shadow, both in the discussion channel as well as our personal Discord. And yeah, that's the best way to keep up with us. Obviously, follow us on our socials as well, and we'll be announcing anything that comes up through that.
All right, well, I'm looking forward to covering it. I'm looking forward to covering the playtest when that comes out. Do look forward to that, ladies and gentlemen. But with that being said, this is Classy Games. This is Matt himself, the legend, that's going to be producing an awesome title in our space in literally the next couple of months. I'm guessing we're going to learn so much more about this game, and people are going to get so hyped for this stuff because the thing is, like, we're finally here. We're finally here. It's 2023. We're getting these games out there. I'm looking forward to playing Echoes of Empire. But with that being said, that's going to be it. Stay classy, and that's all.